in the gym?
I love and I need.
Gymnast. Recognize the face? Well, how about the smile?
Сейчас получилось.
One look at her son may bring you back. Although she might appear to be a typical suburban mother with her husband and child, don't let that fool you. After all, it's been nearly 20 years since you last saw her, and it wasn't on the ground here in New Jersey, but in the air in Munich.
And a front off. Look at the gal go.
The 1972 Olympic Games. Olga Korbut danced onto the scene, stole the crowd's hearts, and revolutionized women's gymnastics. 3 gold medals later, she had the critics calling her Peter Pan in pigtails. An American audience is in love with her warmth and determination.
Little girl is an absolute sensation.
She was the embodiment of the strength of the Soviet Union. To the Western world, a symbol of the success of communism.
You told me that it was extremely difficult for you when you stopped competing to make the transition from the life of a gymnast to an ordinary person. How difficult was that?
Что меня выкинули просто.
Most painful was that I was thrown out like something no longer needed.
If the past couple decades have been difficult on communism, they've been equally hard on Olga Korbut. Her rebellious nature and refusal to join the Communist Party ostracized her from the Soviet sports system and prevented her from capitalizing on her Western success. Today, at the age of 36 and long since retired from competitive gymnastics, she has retained much of her poise and stamina. And she'll need it, because Olga Korbut is facing her toughest challenge yet.
In the Soviet Union, a major nuclear accident, a major meltdown of the
history's worst civilian nuclear accident.
When did you first realize that something terrible had happened?
Когда я увидела больных людей.
When I saw people who are ill, and particularly children, when I saw the people who are doomed, who are sick, very sick.
At 1:24 a.m. on April 26, 1986, a series of blasts in Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl power plant spewed 50 tons of volatile nuclear particles, 10 times the fallout of Hiroshima, across Belarus, Western Russia, and the Ukraine. Korbut, her husband Leonid, and son Richard lived in Minsk, Belarus, only 180 miles from Chernobyl.
Во-первых, я его совсем не помню.
I do not remember this day as anything special because we learned about Chernobyl from Europe 10 days after it happened, 10 days when people should have been hiding.
Не было ничего сообщено.
But slowly, Korbut began to realize something terrible had happened. Rumors of contaminated food and water began to circulate. Children developed unheard of sicknesses, and parents appeared on her doorstep, pleading for Korbut to use her influence to help. Olga's life in Minsk would never be the same again.
There was no joy in Minsk?
No. This question I understood.
Only sadness?
Yes.
Korbut herself began to suffer health problems, but they were mild compared to the sickness around her. 4 million people in her area are now thought to be in high-risk groups for cancer and other diseases.
И сосед,
Yes, one of my neighbors died, a very young person, 32 years old, very healthy, and never suffered from anything before the Chernobyl.
As friends gave birth to children with unusual birth defects, Korbut began to fear not just for the health of her only child, but for the life of the future child she and her husband so desperately wanted.
И доктора в
And
госпиталях.
all doctors in the hospitals told me that if it's possible, the children should be taken away, all children.
Korbut couldn't send all the children away, but she did the toughest thing a mother could do. She packed up her only son, Richard, and sent him off to live with friends in the United States, while she stayed behind to help.
Was there one incident that happened that made you, Olga Korbut, decide that you had to get involved, that made you know you had to be involved?
Я и говорю, что ко мне начали...
When I first started meeting the parents of these sick children, and when I came here with medical analysis for one girl, but it was too late, she died.
For months, Korbut tried in vain to draw support and attention to the disaster victims. Last March, with her health in decline, that frustration, coupled with the separation from her son, proved to be too much. Thinking she could do more good in the country that originally brought her fame, she and her husband left Minsk and joined Richard in the United States.
Did you understand why your parents sent you here?
Yes,
Why?
because of Chernobyl. It's have many radiation there, and many people are, the children are dying, and they don't want me to be there.
Did a lot of your friends talk about radiation and
No.
talk about Chernobyl?
No,
Never talked about it.
They don't know.
they don't know that.
Children don't know.
Do you miss the Soviet Union?
Yes, I have many cousins there, my grandparents.
Do you worry about them?
Yeah, I want them to come here
Why?
because of radiation.
It was because of that radiation that Korbut and her family came here to the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle, Washington, an institute that had previously treated Chernobyl victims.
Why don't you go ahead and step up onto that?
For an exhausting and agonizing 2 days, she, Richard, and Leonid underwent extensive tests to determine what, if any, damage had been done.
How anxiety-causing was that trip to Seattle?
Ну, я вообще оптимист по натуре.
I'm very optimistic by nature, and I avoid very sad thoughts. But of course, I thought somewhere consciously that something might have happened.
Soviet gymnast Olga Korbut got some welcome news today from Dr.
The outcome of the test made local and national news. The family received a clean bill of health for now. And while no one is sure of the long-range effects of radiation, one thing was for certain. America was embracing Olga Korbut all over again.
You are luckier than most, are you not?
Yes.
Korbut's hoping that luck will allow her to accomplish what she couldn't do at home, put a human face on the disaster of Chernobyl.
We're here to announce the Olga Korbut Foundation.
The Olga Korbut Foundation at the Fred Hutchinson Center plans to raise money for research, bring Soviet doctors here for training, as well as export much-needed medical supplies. Eventually, the foundation plans to build a state-of-the-art cancer facility back in Belarus. Korbut has spent the past few months furiously championing her cause, and her mission is enormous. Wherever she goes these days, Olga Korbut pleads the case of the children of Chernobyl. Olga Korbut is convinced that she can do for the people of Chernobyl what she did for women in gymnastics back in 1972. She does plan to return to Minsk, but not till she can deliver hope. Today, with a fresh start in America, her family intact and healthy for the moment, Olga Korbut continues to go for the gold.
You want to have an American baby?
Да.
Husband told me soon.
Yes. He wants daughter.
He wants daughter.
Yes.